How long is a day within a video game? 5 minutes? Half an hour? 24 hours perhaps? This is of course a tricky question, since I have not specified what game's day and night cycle I was referring to. There are games where indeed the in-game time corresponds to the real life one, like Animal Crossing, and there's games like Minecraft where it is 20 minutes, and of course everything in between and beyond. We take for granted that in some games, days are shorter or longer than in others, yet how often do we compare titles' day and night cycles explicitly? And perhaps more importantly, is there a reason in science behind how developers choose the length of digital days? How long should a day in a video game be? First things first, roll the intro. Day and night cycles in video games are not something new. In fact, I have a hard time finding what game was the first one to have them. I will leave on screen some candidates I found in my research, but regardless of what game was it, this feature became more popular in gaming over time. There is not one day when every open world game adopted this feature, but it is safe to state that the majority of modern open world titles have adopted this secretive feature one way or the other. Not all of course, some games like Sunset Overdrive, Dragon Age Inquisition and Nier Automata do not have it, but many more do. Note that it specifies open world games, since linear titles might not need nor benefit from having a day and night cycle. In a game like Sonic, where levels take 2 to 3 minutes to complete, it would be pointless to have such a feature. Games that definitely benefit from Dusk and Dawns are RPGs and survival titles. For the former, it makes adventures feel more complete, as if the player is traveling for days and nights in an unfamiliar world, not to mention that some quests may rely heavily on specific times of days to work. For survivals, it is even more evident. Days are needed for the player to gear up, while nights are, well, the survival parts of survivals. There are some titles that prefer to have a striking contrast between daylight and nighttime, where the player artificially chooses the time of day by going to sleep. Think of games like Yakuza for instance. In most games of the franchise, the time of day depends on the story, not on the gameplay, with some chapters taking place at moonview and others below the sun. Alternatively, the player can go to the hideout and sleep to set a specific time, usually an unlockable feature near the end of the adventure. But regardless, most titles these days do opt to have a day and night cycle that flows naturally and without the player's input. It is curious to think that three extremely different games like Watch Dogs 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance and Pokemon Black and White have virtually nothing in common, yet they all share this feature. But hold on a minute, true they all share it, but why is a day in San Francisco 48 minutes, one in Bohemia 96 minutes and one in Unova 24 hours? The latter example is understandable, 1 minute in game is equal to, well, 1 minute in real life. But if the game uses another scale to make time pass faster, on what grounds do developers decide how long a day should be? In today's video, I'll share my 2 cents on the topic and try to answer the main question, how long should a day in a video game be, while bringing various examples of different games that have different day and night cycles. Of course, the clickbaity question does not have a net answer, but it is going to be fun to explore how different games tackle the diurnal and nocturnal aspect, gameplay-wise. It seems curious that out of all the things developers standardize around games, from UI elements to menus to controls to combat systems and whatnot, day and night cycles are chosen apparently randomly, based on nothing. Okay, not nothing, they are usually about proportional to a regular day, but still, what games have what length for days feels a bit random. According to my research, the most common length for days in video games is 24 minutes, with the second most common option being 48. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Terraria, Far Cry 3, Borderlands, Sonic Frontiers, Genshin Impact all have days of 24 minutes, while GTA 5, Watch Dogs, Fallout New Vegas, Red Dead Redemption 2 have them of 48. 24 is not a random number. As you can guess, developers often just make it so that a real-life minute corresponds to an in-game hour. I know, how original. 48 is chosen for the same reason, but it is just 2 times slower. If you're wondering, yes, 72-minute days also exist in gaming, more specifically in Skyrim and Euro Truck Simulator 2, and if we add additional 24 minutes, we get games like The Witcher 3 and Kingdom Come, both bringing to the table 96-minute days around the clock. But of course I would not make a video about this topic if all games fell in a neat table. There are titles where the day length is not a multiplier of 24, nor even 12. Such games, just to name a few, are Dragon Quest XI, where a day is 10 minutes, Minecraft where it is 20, Mafia 3 where it is 1 hour, and Cyberpunk where a day lasts for a good 3 real-life hours. And numbers are not even consistent between franchises. GTA Vice City used to have 24 minutes a day, while the rest of the franchises use 48. For this particular example, I think it's due to the fact that Miami is a much more pleasant city to explore at nighttime, so developers wanted the player to roam the streets at night more frequently throughout gameplay. And speaking about nights, while most games do have a 1/3 ratio between daytime and nighttime, corresponding roughly to an average day in most parts of the world, there are some titles such as Zelda Wind Waker where there is a 50-50 split between day and night. I'm not too sure why this is the case, maybe developers wanted to motivate players to navigate the world even at nighttime, but my guess is as good as yours. A game that does the exact opposite is Just Cause 3. The day and night cycle of the title is a bit off. Apparently nobody's really sure how long a day is, somewhere between 1 and 3 hours, but nights are definitely quite short, lasting a handful of minutes. It is quite a shame since roaming the world at night is actually pretty awesome, and I can only imagine how cool would it be to fly under the sunset. At least the game is a pretty unique way to change the time of day, and that is by going to church, so I'll give Avalanche Studios some credit. And keep in mind that a day cycle can have an effect on gameplay. A game that truly comes to life at night is the Dying Light franchise. In the survival action adventure zombie game, the player is free to roam around the city during the day, where zombies are slow and usually not a real menace, but during the night, running will be crucial since the strongest demons of hell will be roaming the overworld, ready to turn into pieces. But even when this feature is merely aesthetic, it still makes a noticeable difference. Mario Kart Super Circuit is the only title that has a track, Sunset Wilds, that has a day and night cycle. I always found this feature very cool, so much so that Nintendo purged it away when remaking the track for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Such removal was noticed by literally all the fans of the karting franchise. Real cool, Nintendo. But what about games where time does correspond 1-to-1 to real time? Games where 1 minute spent on the digital world is 1 minute spent seated on the couch. These games are slightly more meta than others, since any game-related task that is linked with the in-game time will also reflect upon the player's real time. In this case, the day and night cycle definitely play a more active role in the gameplay. In some games like Pokemon, time does not truly matter much. Shops and Pokemon centers are open 24 hours, and the plot can be completed without hiccups. Sure, some Pokemons like Eevee might evolve differently, and in some places some Pokemons can be found only at certain times of the day, but these are minor details. Cool to experience, but nothing extraordinary. A game where time truly matters is Animal Crossing, known for its slow gameplay experience where day-to-day activities are quite literally daily activities by the player. This makes the game's gameplay tranquil and with great longevity, but it surely makes the games quite challenging to play for people with tight schedules. Shops do close at night, and events like birthdays and holidays only occur once per year. But would a game like Animal Crossing work if days lasted shorter? Would a game like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom work the same if days were 48 minutes rather than 24? And perhaps the most important question of all, how long should a day in a video game be? I mean, it's even in the title of the video, I gotta answer it sooner or later. Let us start off with the latter examples, the games with a 24-hour day and night cycles. I would say that, depending on how the game is structured, the length of days do matter. A game like Animal Crossing would be different if it had regular 20 or minutes days. On one hand, it would make the game more approachable, it could be played at any time for how long the player desires. On the other hand, however, the realism of building something over real months if not years would be lost, since the game could be rushed within weeks. Stardew Valley, a similar game to Animal Crossing, has a more standard day and night cycle of 15 minutes, and even if it appeals to the same fanbase, the experience of playing the game is different. When asking my brother, a true legend has spent thousands of hours on both Stardew Valley and AC New Horizons to confront the two titles regarding the day and night cycle, he replied: Il ciclo giorno-notte svolge due funzioni completamente diverse. Su Stardew Valley, dopo una quindicina di minuti, hai fatto tutto quello che potevi fare durante il giorno. Su New Horizons, dopo un'oretta, senti che non c'è più roba da fare, quindi insomma diventa frustrante. Well, what did you expect? We speak Italian in the family. But today I feel generous, so I left subtitles. Point being that in this case, the length of days within video games does matter noticeably. You get two different games if days flow at different rhythms. But what about games where the time difference is more neglectable? Are 72-minute days in Skyrim really that crucial for the experience? Would the game still work if days lasted for 24 or 96 minutes? Yes and no. Let me explain. Of course, gameplay-wise, most titles will work just fine with slightly different days and night cycles. There are even mods that allow the players to alter them. But do not underestimate how much care developers have put into deciding how long an in-game game should be. Most often than not, developers played around different lengths in order to find the ideal one for the game. Let us do something I did countless times in my channel, comparing Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Both games are similar, yet one day in Zelda is 24 minutes and one day in The Witcher is 96, meaning that time flows 4 times slower in Novigrad than in Hyrule. I would argue that even if both titles are about exploring an unknown world, being The Witcher focused more on the characters and Zelda on the overworld, it makes sense that in Zelda the player experiences nights much more often than in The Witcher. Think about it, quests in The Witcher take a fairly long time to complete. It would be odd for the player to experience a whole day by just completing 1 or 2 quests. Likewise, it would be odd for having a full hour sun in Zelda without experiencing night exploration, a noticeable part of the game since shrines and towers glow in the dark. Mine are just speculations. I cannot explain the specific reason for each game's clockwork, but developers who have tested the game must have adjusted the length of days by simply what it felt right for the given title. Minecraft has a fairly balanced 10-minute days and 10-minute night cycles, plenty of time for the player to achieve tasks by either building during the day and fighting or mining during the night. Would Minecraft work with a half an hour day and half an hour night? Maybe, but probably during developers it felt too long. A game where testing was relevant to find out how long a day should be was Euro Truck Simulator 2. The game lets the player drive in a scaled-down version of Europe, where distances between cities are noticeably shorter in real life, meaning that to simulate day journeys in long distances travel, they had to estimate how long time would run proportional to the shorter distances driven. If going from Istanbul to Paris takes 24 hours in real time, the player should experience about a full in-game day. Less or more than that would ruin the simulation. Of course, I do not exclude the possibility that some games just randomly chose a day and night cycle length and stick with that. Watch Dogs 2 might have 48-minute days just because GTA 5 has them. Nothing more, nothing less. But regardless of the reason, the decision of how long a day in a video game is has to be taken at one point, and more thought can have gone behind it that we might be aware of, from game days that have 24 hours to days that last for 3 laps. The question how long should a day in a video game be is misleading, because all day length placed in the right context can work, but I do think that keeping them proportional to real life time makes experiencing days in video games more natural, more in tune to the player's expectation. Should a day last 24 minutes or 24 hours? Well, it depends. It always does. We might not think much of day and night cycles in video games, since they just sort of happen without any input or interaction by the player, yet the science and philosophies behind them in various games are more complex than we might initially give them credit for. We will never know with absolute certainty why some games have 2-hour days rather than 4, but it is curious to be aware that days in gaming world are not universal, and that we should learn to appreciate the different paces developers intend their player to experience in their unique crafts. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one too many days and night cycles for watching today's video. I must admit, today's topic was quite random. There's no real conclusion I could reach, but I had many random thoughts I had to share about the topic, and I hope I did it in a conceivable way. Nevertheless, if you enjoyed today's video, I do invite you to leave a like, to share it and to subscribe for more. I wish you a wonderful day, and until next time, arrivederci.